This is in the air, that various funds that have been impounded by the West could be repurposed for Ukraine, and then you change quite a lot in the military balance, at least for a while.
Well, he supports a ceasefire, but a very, very big but. Let's get some analysis now from two of the best analysts in the business. Frankly, Roger Boyes is the diplomatic editor of The Times. He's here with me in the studio. Hello to you, Roger.
Hello.
Good to see you. Thank you for coming along. And Tim Marshall's on the line, a foreign author, correspondent, author of Prisoners of Geography. Hello to you, Tim.
Hello, John.
Thanks for joining us on the programme, Tim. Roger, can I come to you first?
Yeah.
From what we've heard so far from Putin and since, it's a developing story. Tell me what you make of it all.
Well, the first thing is it's not massively surprising. It's clear that Putin was going to say yes and no, very limited yes, and a not at all concealed no. And that's what's happened. One theory is that Zelensky reached some kind of accommodation with the American administration that would allow them both to place Putin in a kind of trap in which it's obvious and call Putin's bluff, essentially, and make it obvious that Putin is not playing. He's only playing by his rules.
Right.
So.
Do you subscribe to that view yourself?
Well, I think it's possible. What we have to do is understand where Putin is coming from. Yeah, he wants to regain a lost empire. So, and any agreement that is reached with him has to serve that purpose.
Yes.
And the agreement, as it stands, won't really satisfy him until he manipulates it. And this is what's happening now. He wants a demilitarized Ukraine.
Yes.
He wants, we know all the things that he's asked for
yes.
all the time, and he continues to ask for them. And then there's a secondary question, which is what does he want to do with the other countries that were once regarded as being in the Soviet sphere of interest?
Yes.
And this is what worries countries like Poland, hence Andrzej Duda's slightly incoherent thoughts that Poland should get nuclear weapons.
Right.
So all of this is coming together, and it's a jumble. But two or three things are clear. One is that Putin really doesn't want an understanding. He thinks the forces with him, so to speak, that he's winning on all fronts. The other is that the West is not completely coherent either, and should be agreeing on, and perhaps one could get Trump to do this, an active confiscation of Russian assets that have been impounded.
You raised some really, really interesting questions, which I want to explore with you if I can in just a moment's time. I suppose chief among them, from what you've been saying, if Ukraine and America anticipated this kind of response, and yesterday we were talking about what was likely to come from Putin, and we did kind of anticipate it would be a massively caveated yes to a ceasefire. So caveated as to make the yes to the ceasefire almost meaningless. But if that was the plan, to draw that out, there then has to be a next stage to the plan. That's how do you deal with that as and when it happens. I want to come back to you on that, Roger, in just a second. Tim Marshall, first of all, what do you make? Having listened to Vladimir Putin, he spoke about the battle raging on Russia's own territory in Kursk, claiming that that's obviously an embarrassment to Putin and to Russia to have that territory occupied by Russian forces. And Putin's portraying that as a battle won, saying the Ukrainians are isolated, surrounded, they're cut off, they can surrender or die now. You follow these matters on the battlefield. I know you do. So what's your assessment, first of all, of that? What do you think is actually happening in Kursk?
They've clearly actually gained quite a lot of ground in Kursk, inside Russia. The Ukrainians took it last summer, a very small amount of territory, but it was one they wanted to hold on to ahead of any negotiations. And I think Putin's partially right. I think they have taken a lot of territory back from the Ukrainians, and they're probably maneuvering themselves into a position to try to push them out completely, which is pretty handy for Putin at this time. I concur with Roger that, I mean, I've argued from the beginning, Putin is not stupid enough just to say niet to Trump consistently.
Yeah.
What we're going to find out now, John, is he clever enough to say niet whilst making Trump think he's actually saying da, yes.
Yes.
Because I said to you 2 nights ago, after the first breakthrough, when Ukraine said that they would look to the ceasefire, the ball is now in Russia's court. But I've been thinking in the last half an hour, is Putin clever enough? Well, Putin's may now put the ball into Trump's court.
Yes.
What I mean is, you probably saw Trump when he wrote on Truth Social a few days ago. He was threatening to unleash large-scale banking sanctions on Russia until a ceasefire is reached. So if he does not go far enough with Steve Witkoff tonight, because he's seeing him at the moment, Trump's envoy, at that point, if he's going to call Trump's bluff in a very public manner, then Trump may bring down these large-scale sanctions. And unlike many analysts, I think they've got some very large sticks with which still to beat Russia. So we're going to see now, over the next 24 hours, how clever is Putin in trying to delay and yet still seem as if he's playing ball.
And a touch of Donald Trump. If Putin is stringing everyone along, including Trump, what will Trump do about that? Just back to you on this, Roger. I was talking to an economic analyst just 10 minutes ago who said there are still powerful cards in the hands of Donald Trump. We have had sanctions, financial and banking sanctions imposed on Russia, but there are more that could still be applied, and they would hurt. And let me just play this to you, because I spoke way back before the election to Sebastian Gorka, a leading member of the MAGA tribe, who's now part of the defense team in the Trump administration. I asked him then, look, you say you want to bring about peace. You say that you'll put pressure on Ukraine. What about putting pressure on Donald Trump? What would you do? Well, he told me this then.
Within 24 hours of the inauguration, he will, behind closed doors, with very short words, he will make it clear to both Vladimir Zelensky that he must negotiate. There are things right now he cannot get back, including Crimea, but he must negotiate. He will say the same to Vladimir Putin on the hotline from the Resolute desk in the White House, and he will say, I'll give one tip away that the president has mentioned. He will say to that murderous former KGB colonel, that thug who runs the Russian Federation, you will negotiate now, or the aid that we have given to Ukraine thus far will look like peanuts. That's how he will force those gentlemen to come to an arrangement that stops the bloodshed.
So that was Sebastian Gorka, pretty close to the MAGA tribe there. He said that Donald Trump would look Putin in the eye, the thug, as he called him, and said he would give Ukraine a huge new arsenal of weapons unless Putin came to heel. Now, Roger, briefly on that. We've heard nothing about massively pouring arms at Ukraine since the election or in the run-up to this crisis. We've heard a bit about sanctions. Is the will there?
Well, I mean, the Americans have said that they will, because of Zelensky's approval of the ceasefire, that they will resume technical assistance and intelligence sharing.
Yeah, but he was talking about pouring much more, about arming them to the teeth to a much higher extent, to the point that would actually scare and spook Putin. That is a serious threat, isn't it?
Well, I mean, one has to take these things seriously because Trump's record is of a flip-flop artist.
Yeah.
So whether it's with tariffs or with anything else, he will impose something and then pause it or even retract it. But either way, leave time for for his counterparts to sweat, and then we'll push again, and that's the way it is. It's a continual process of redefining the argument as he sees it. Okay. So yes, and this is in the air. That various funds that have been impounded by the West, could be repurposed for Ukraine, and then you change quite a lot in the military balance, at least for a while.